Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Se Vuelve Podcast. My name is Monica, and I want to thank you for being here. This episode is going to deal with some sensitive topics. So, this is a little bit of a trigger warning because there's going to be conversations about stalking, harassment, even to say guns. It's something that I will be sharing with you that I wasn't expecting to be talking about. But this platform, it's about sharing stories and hopefully to bring awareness. It's a difficult conversation to have, guys. So just kind of bear with me because this episode is going to be a little bit of a heavy one. All right. So to start off with, I think I want to give a little bit of background information. So we're going to go to the past and then we'll bring it kind of forward to a month ago. Based on kind of the title, you're probably thinking, what the hell, right? And like I said, this wasn't a thing that I thought that would happen to me or my family members or even like our neighborhood, right? So going back to the past, this had to be about, I'm thinking anywhere from 2 to 3 years ago. It kind of happened out of nowhere where one of our neighbors was having issues with one of our other neighbors, and around that time that neighbor ended up putting an order of protection against this individual, this other neighbor of ours. And he ended up getting arrested, and that kind of ended up triggering some of the like other events. I don't know what necessarily happened with those neighbors, but I'll kind of jump forward to kind of what happened with like me and my household, right? My family, right? We knew for a fact that this individual was, I'm going to say words of not of right mind. We also knew that this individual ended up getting a dog, specifically a pit bull mix. Nothing against pit bull mixes or anything. I've heard those dogs are so sweet and stuff like that. But specifically, our issue was that we had heard from his neighbors, the people that live right next door to him. He was specifically training this dog to attack other dogs, right? Obviously, like my household, we have a couple dogs, and specifically even like a really small one, right? An incident that happened around, I think, also 2 to 3 years, is that his dog ended up attacking a little Yorkie. The little Yorkie was out on its leash in its yard, like going to the bathroom. The dog escaped, nearly killed that dog. So we were definitely concerned about our dogs being hurt. Going back to, like I said in the past, there was an incident that he was walking his dog and he came onto our property. Our bigger dog was our boxer. We have a boxer, was in the backyard. He brought up his dog up to the fence. The dogs were kind of like going at it through the fence. We heard like this loud like commotion. We go out and I go to go check on like the boxer. The boxer was kind of like must have like lost a tooth or something, right? Bleeding. He takes his dog away, right? So that incident, we ended up kind of calling the cops because that was intentional, right? And we wanted to make sure that we kind of, started to keep a record. But the thing was that, like, it seemed that every single time we would kind of do something to prevent, so we would call the police, it would feed his ego or whatever you want to call it, right? I'll speak about some of like the things that has happened to me. There was an instant where I I used to walk in my neighborhood. Let me specify. We live in a dead end, and we do have a field behind one of the houses, like a pretty big field. And then behind a row of houses, we also have another field. So I used to walk around my neighborhood by myself with my dog. She's a cocker spaniel, and this was actually prior to the attack of the Yorkie, because those neighbors moved in afterwards. I was walking my dog in the field, and I would do kind of like walk the perimeter and go to another street and stuff like that. And that day I was by myself. All of a sudden, from my right, here comes the dog going at my dog. And it's kind of so silly, because like in my like head, I was like, oh my god, like my dog's gonna attack his dog, right? Because she's a little feisty, she's a little sassy. She be tumbling with my boxer. I was concerned with her fighting him, because to say it in Spanish, ella no se va a dejar, right? She's not gonna let herself be attacked. So I have her kind of, I almost like picked her up with the, like, from the leash. She had a harness on, and I ended up grabbing his dog, and I ended up putting his collar in my hand. And then, all of a sudden he shows up and just kind of like, kind of, let me grab my dog, kind of type of thing, or whatever. I didn't even say sorry or anything. So that day, I remember I just kind of returned back to my house. So that was one time with the dog. And there was another time, my former neighbors, that they had a dog. He was walking his dog. I think he had him like tied up to the front porch or something. He broke like one of the panels from the porch and came towards the dog, was attacking the dog. And the guy, mind you, the guy that was walking him was a big guy, was, screaming. I ended up, like, I was sitting on my porch just talking to a friend. I run down, and he finally comes over, grabs the dog. I don't know what the heck he does with the dog. He takes him to the backyard, and I'm still sitting on my porch. The guy is back with his dog at his house. All of a sudden, I see from the back area, because he has a backyard, the dog runs all the way. So I end up, like, because I'm literally close to the street, and I run down, and I remember getting in the middle of the street because the dog was trying to come towards the group of guys, and also the dog, because their dog was just sitting up in the front. And I end up yelling, like, go home, like, really, really loud. And you just stood there, and I yelled, and then all of a sudden, both the male owner and then his wife end up coming out, grabbing the dog. Both these incidents were before the Yorkie attack. His house was not like gated or anything. After the Yorkie attack, the Yorkie's owner ended up taking him to court, and basically they ended up putting certain conditions for him. After that incident, it seemed to kind of slow down or calm down, especially with the dog, because the dog was chained up and in its backyard, right? So that's kind of the incidents with the dog kind of like attacking other dogs. I know I kind of went on a tangent, but I wanted to give as much details as possible. After the phone call to the cops, like, I kind of mentioned that it seemed like it triggered something in him. There was one time I was walking the fields. It had to be like in the fall or something, because I had a jacket on with I could put a hood, and I'm walking. I think I was by myself, kind of like walking the perimeter of that field. Well, I saw him on a bike with a dog pulling the bike. And I want to make this specifically clear. This is not a bike. This is not a trail. There's no cement. There's no blacktop, whatever you want to call it. This is a freaking field on a bicycle. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think he's following me. And sure enough, I'm walking my little, like I said, corner, and I see him. As he got closer to me, he pulled out his phone and was recording me. And I had my hood up or whatever, so I pulled it up so you can barely see. And when I saw him do that, I like turned the other way, and I think I ended up walking back through one of the entrances, and he kind of came back. So then I went back in that field. How, I don't even know how to explain this, but there's like a little walkway that cuts from my house through that field. It's behind a couple houses down. I usually don't like to walk that way because One of our other neighbors has another dog, a larger dog that likes to bark and sounds, loud, scary. And I like to avoid getting barked at. I ended up cutting through that field, walking down my driveway, and I actually ended up crashing to a couple of my neighbors. After I came out, he came out, and then she was just like, "Did he follow you?" And I said, "Yeah, like he was cornering me in the field." So that made me very, very nervous and also cautious of, I guess, like walking in the neighborhood. Another instant, I was sitting on my porch and probably laying in some weird way because I was watching TikToks or reading. And my mama had been with me at some point, but she ended up going to the back to do something. And all of a sudden, I hear whistling. So I kind of look up and I look. I said, "Mom," and I didn't see her around. I thought she was whistling at me to get my attention. As I'm like looking around, I look over at his house, his front porch, and sure enough, he is standing there with his camera pointed at me, intentionally trying to get my attention, intentionally trying to film me. It was a lot. It was scary. I will say this because I know I told my friends this. It really kind of hindered me being able to walk in my neighborhood or my block, because how do you walk if you don't feel safe, right? Things kind of like calmed down after that, but now I'm gonna jump into late May slash June of 2025. I noticed that he started to walk his dog all over our street, right? And mind you, like I mentioned before, our concern was his dog attacking like some of our other dogs as well. And by this point, he actually was walking his big dog, the pit bull or pit bull mix. The smaller dog was off leash, the bigger dog was on leash. We started to get concerned over that situation. But more specifically, my mom started to say some things. She started to tell me that she's like, it seems like anytime I come outside and I'm like working on the front yard. My mom has a green thumb. She has a lot of plants and was working on making the front yard look beautiful. This is like my thinking because I told my mom, like, I wonder if he's like jealous or envious that you're out here, tending your yard or whatever, because he always has like some sort of project or remodeling or something going on. Like this time around, he redid his like porch. There used to be two separate entrances. He has like a apartment at the top or stuff like that, that he rents out, and then like they live on the bottom. He closed out the separate entrance, made just one big, like one the major entrance for people to go in through, and then was redoing his front yard to I don't even know. Like I said, he's always like doing something. Like he's modified his yard all like consistently, always. Like, I mean, excessively. I'm not talking about like, oh, like, a project. No, it's a constant thing. And so I was thinking, well, maybe he is not liking that you're making our yard look nice. I don't know. But going back to my mom was like, it seems that anytime she's like, I'm out here and I'm gardening, and a lot of the times she's either out there with the white small dog, or the white small dog and then my niece. I have two nieces. The youngest one, she's like a year and a half. My mom was concerned because she said he's getting really, really close to me with the dog. There was one time where I came out because I heard the small white dog barking, and my niece was out there with her. And sure enough, he was walking his dog like back and forth. My mom got really scared and she's like, let me just, let's just go inside. So I ended up grabbing, I don't remember if it was my niece or the dog, and just like bringing them in. We're going to transition to I'm what I'm gonna call like the blow up weekend, right? It's Father's Day weekend of 2025. And this is a Friday, and we have people over after 6:30, like 7 o'clock. I ended up taking the small white dog, she's on leash, like kind of hooked to our yard. And then I ended up taking out my brother's dog, the boy dog, and I hear barking from the small white dog, and also because I was like, okay, let me go put them inside as well. And as I step outside, I see the one small dog that's off leash come into our yard, and the boy dog. I always have to emphasize this: the boy dog. He's like a dopey dog. We're talking this dog is dopey, dumb, and he's very sweet. I've never seen him get like mean at all. And he didn't in this instant. He didn't even bark. All he did was that his small scraggly dog that came into our yard, our boy dog, chased him out to the street. And as I'm like saying, Freddie, Freddie, that's our dog's name, right? And I'm going down the stairs, like my mom comes out behind me. Behind my mom comes out my uncle, the owner of both the pit bull mix and the scraggly dog. Starts saying some stuff, and my mom, tells him like, I've already talked to you multiple times, and I've told you stay away from our yards, don't come close to us, keep your dogs away, kind of type of thing. And he starts cussing out, like, cussing us out, saying stuff to us. And, we come back inside. And when my dad actually comes inside, he had to gone somewhere. We're telling him what happened. And he was like, well, did you guys call the police? And we were like, no, because we try to be like civilized and stuff like that. We've been very civilized and have actually told him like very like nicely, like, stay away, please don't come near our yard, near us. So I call the police. What they ended up telling me was that we're currently in the middle of a shift change. It might take us some time to send somebody your way. She ended up telling me, if this happens again, please call us immediately. During that time, my dad decides to go outside on the front porch to smoke a cigarette. And this guy is like walking up and down and saying stuff to my dad, like harassing him and this and that. Like, my dad decides to like step off the porch and, tell him, we're just telling you like to stay away from our yard, to stay away from us, to, keep your big dog away, this and that. Right behind him, I come out and, I call the police again. The police comes out shortly after. I ended up talking to them for a little bit. I said, listen, in a civilized manner, we've asked him multiple times to stay away from us. We're concerned about the dog. Now he's harassing, saying things. They ended up telling me, and they ended up giving me like a card that's supposed to be like a police report. They said, the best thing you can do is on Monday, go to the courthouse and file an order of protection, because if he happens to say anything or step on your property, he's immediately going to jail. At that time, actually, there was two police officers. So one talking to me, one talking to him, and the one that was talking to him spoke both English and Spanish. So then the other police officer comes to talk to us. He's playing games. He's like, I talk to him in one language, he switches up to the other language. I talk to him in the other language, he switches up to the other language. He's playing games. And he once again explains to me the order of protection stuff and to go file that on Monday. They leave, and I'm texting my older brother who lives like 5 minutes away and saying, this is what happened. So he comes over, and we're sitting on the front porch together, and he's once again like walking up and down the street with his dog, saying stuff to my brother, just harassing. The thing that we noticed, and even my brother said this, he was like, he's trying to antagonize people. He's trying to, in this moment of like, yeah, harassment, he's trying to antagonize people, specifically to antagonize the men. We think it's because he's trying to push a button so that the other person reacts and like attacks first, and then he can claim self-defense. He's harassing, talking to my brother. He's calling my brother Manteco. So like, because my brother's tall and a big guy, right? And the dog was even barking at my brother, because my brother's like kind of like watching him, and then he's like, "Él sí reconoce quién son los malosos." Like he recognized who are the how do you translate in English? Like kind of like bad people or something like that, right? We're sitting, and my dad comes outside, and he's like, "Why are you guys sitting out here?" After all that incident, so that I go inside, and my brother and my dad stay out there. He's talking shit and harassing my dad and my brother. And my dad says something to him in Spanish, like, patron, something, ya vete a dormir, like, dude, like, just go to sleep. And it, like, makes him even more angry, right? So my dad and my brother come back inside. My brother leaves at a point, and for the most part, that concludes Friday night. I want to state that something happened Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So on Saturday, my mom is cleaning inside the house, and she tells me, "Please go outside and sit with your grandma," because my mom and my grandma had been sitting outside. So I'm sitting out there just on our front porch, and my mom has these flower pots. The flower pots are like kind of low. I'm sitting with my grandma just having a conversation, and I see him come out from like my peripheral from his front of the house, and kind of like sat up so that the flower pot was covering my head or whatever, my face. And all of a sudden, you hear whistling consistently, like it didn't stop. I literally told my grandma, I said, "Don't turn around. I think he's trying to film us." I did see him take out his phone, and because I didn't do what I did last time, which is what I got up and I looked around or whatever, I just kind of adjusted myself so that these flower pots would hide my face. When he saw that he could not get me to look at him, he ended up starting to come down his stairs. And if he would come down his stairs, he would definitely get a different angle and would be able to get me on camera. So when I saw him walk down the stairs, I literally got up and I went into the house, and I told my mom, and I said, "He's trying to film us. He's trying to film us again." I told her of how he whistled. My mom was like, "I thought that was you whistling. That's how loud that was." Mind you, he lives diagonally to my left. He's not in front of my house, about 2 houses down to my left side. And that's how loud it was. And now we get to Sunday. Sunday was kind of like one of the boiling points. That night I had gone out with my friend to dinner. I kind of wanted to get away. We've had 2 nights or 2 days of this harassment, this intimidation. I'm out, and we're on our way back, and my sister tells me that our neighbors, the people that live next door to him, ended up calling the cops on him. And the reason why they did it was because he decided to trespass into their backyard with a dog. I'm going to say again, because this was the second time in not even, I think, 2 weeks. So we're going to go kind of back to that time frame when I said like 2 weeks, right? All right. Because I was sitting on my porch, and I saw him walk back to those neighbors' backyard with his dog. He was trying to be like buddy buddy with them and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, I hear dog fighting because those neighbors have a dog. I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. So then all of a sudden, he comes out and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah." Going back to that Sunday, he decides to come back, trespass with a dog on Father's Day. And basically, that time around, there was more people, right? They were celebrating Father's Day between the siblings because unfortunately their dad did pass away a couple years ago. They tell him, get out of our house. And that just sets a thing into motion where we're talking about this went on from, I'm going to say like 6 p.m. ish to 1 o'clock in the morning. That whole night, I think between me and then the neighbors that lived next to him, we called the police like 5 times because that whole night he was intimidating, he was harassing, he was trying to upset these individuals, and they were just like arguing with him and stuff like that. And I ended up like, watching from like one of my windows up at the top. There was one point in that whole ordeal that like he had his dog and was like pushing the dog to, to one of the other neighbors. We end up finding out that that dog bit him. I think they took that photographs that night. This process was long, it was exhausting, it was frightening. Anytime we called the police, he just kept going inside. He just would refuse to talk to them, and then, if they decided to leave, all of a sudden he would come back out. It was like a hide and seek game. There was one point where we thought that it was done, and he ends up saying something like inappropriate to Diana, and her boyfriend was there with her. He goes to say something to him, and I think he had like a shovel or something. There's a video where you can see kind of like the sparks of him hitting the shovel to the ground. When that happened, I think that point there was a police like down the road, and then there was another one at the end, and I don't think he was aware that they didn't all leave, that they did stay to file the report in the neighborhood. When that all happened, once again, he refused to talk with them. He would went inside, but then I noticed, because like I said, I was being sneaky. I was watching them through the window, that he has two entrances, one in the front and one in the back. So what he would do is he would go through the front and then come out through the back. I think he was like sneaking into his truck. Diana's brother, or one of her older brothers, ended up saying that, we're just trying to be out here celebrating Father's Day. Our dad passed away, and we can't even sit out here in peace without being harassed. And, they were upset. And the police officer told him, I'm sorry that I have to tell you, but I think the best thing for you to do is to go inside and go to bed and go deal, go file this so that you get like some sort of protection, because he never would, like, it's not like he would hit first, he would just run his mouth. So it wasn't really anything that they could do, like, besides, come to try to talk to him or whatever. So by that point, everybody was like, okay, we're going to go to bed. It was probably at that point, like after midnight. And I'm watching him through the window, and I don't know if my sister's watching him too through one of our downstairs windows. I see him on the phone, like having a full on conversation. And I'm like, who is he talking to at midnight, almost 1 o'clock in the morning? And all of a sudden, we see a whole bunch of cops show up. And I was like, did he really call the police? And everybody was inside. Nobody was out. It was just him. And I was just like flabbergasted, because for what reason? Like, nobody was arguing with him anymore. We were all inside. By that point, that was the end of Sunday night. Now we're going to jump to Monday. We're over here with the intention of, we're going to go file an order of protection. The neighbors are going to go file an order of protection. And my brother and my sister were outside, I think, with the smallest niece, sitting out there. And I think I looked out through my window. I was like, what is he doing, right? We start to see that he decided to take out one of the panels from the fence for their next door neighbors. It looks like a drawer, and I caught a picture of this. You see him put like a plexiglass, and then, we're over here like, did he install a camera facing the direction of the neighbor's yard? Yes, he did. And we're like, he's spiraling, right? And afterwards, I don't know if my siblings sent us a text message or of a picture, or I was just like, by this point now, looking not through my bedroom window, but through the window in like the little landing, and I see him with a rifle. And I remember going down the stairs and telling my mom, because my sister's out there on the porch, my brother's out there in the baby, and we're like, you guys need to get inside. Once again, don't think this person is of right of mind. So then I think I come back upstairs. My mom's like watching him through her bedroom window, and we see that the brother that had said the statement to the officer about wanting to celebrate Father's Day, he comes to Diana's house, pulls in his red truck, and he is there maybe 5, not even 10 minutes, and he pulls back and starts to drive down the street. I don't think he saw that he had the rifle, but both me and my mom witnessed that as he was driving kind of like down the street, he takes his rifle and points it at the truck. Mind you, this is a person he had just gotten into an argument with the day before. My mom's like, call the police, call the police. So I call the police. Side note, I'm on here on the phone talking to dispatch. Dispatch did not want to send somebody. And I'm letting her know, and she's like, well, they have a, like, people have a right to own a gun. And I'm telling her how I'm, concerned. I'm telling her I was about to go to the courthouse to get an order of protection against him. I told her how he pointed the gun at the red truck and stuff like that. So then she was like, well, what do you want me to do? Because at that point, I had told him, like, send somebody. Don't, like, I was getting so frustrated because, like I said, I wanted to leave to the courthouse. So they sent somebody. Actually, it was 3 police officers. So there was 2 older gentlemen and then a rookie. Me and my sister are outside having a conversation with them. We said, this is, I don't know what at this point, what number of calls we've had with the police. We saw him have a rifle. We're concerned. We saw him pointing it at the truck. So then they're like, we're going to go and we're going to talk to him. The 3 of them go, and he's like in the front, and I don't know if he has a shovel or if he has a rake or what he has in his hand. And they're just like trying to talk to him. It's in the daytime. They end up trying to talk to him, and they walk in his backyard behind him. Me and my sister are just standing on the porch, and all of a sudden we hear, oh shit, oh shit. And we heard, I didn't know what I thought it was like a gunshot or something. I don't know if it was like a taser or what it was. Shortly after, we see a whole bunch of police officers coming by and an ambulance and stuff like that. They end up taking him out in handcuffs. They put him in the car. So essentially what ended up happening, witness from afar, right, or we found out, is that unfortunately one of the police officers, a rookie, ended up getting attacked by the pit bull. We thought he got bit in the leg. I'll say it now. He did not get bit in the leg. We found out later on that he got bit in, what's the word? Balls, testicles. He ended up getting taken to the hospital. Then they also ended up calling kind of like there's a unit that handles like vicious or dangerous dogs. That unit came over later. Basically, in that whole process, they ended up doing a little bit of a background check. After that whole ordeal, they arrest him. They actually take him out of the police car. They brought him inside. I know he has his daughter in there. They end up taking his rifle, and they ends up getting taken away to jail. We're sitting here and we're watching or waiting for the ones that handle the vicious animals. And, we kind of talk to them as well. They actually end up taking the dog away. Afterwards, I end up going to the courthouse to file that order of protection. The order of protection was granted for both Diana and her family for 21 days. And I also get my order of protection for 21 days approved. What we were told is that we were going to have court a couple weeks later, and to bring whatever evidence, that would be a court case to see if they would extend our order of protections for 2 years. When I get out of court, I get a phone call from the police officer, which I'm very grateful, because he did tell me, he's like, I'm going to call you. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, or if he gets out, or this and that, right? So he calls me. He said, we don't think he's going to get out tonight, but we think he can get out anywhere between 36 to 48 hours. I just want to make you aware of that. And he said, please, if you just see him out, go inside. If he violates your order of protection, call us. So that makes me nervous, because I'm like, now I have to wait for this guy to get out. We feel like he got arrested. He's going to come out. Well, between that and the fact that they took the dog away, he's going to be even more mad. He's going to have more of a, almost like, not even more of a reason to be angry. These experiences are traumatic. I had a discussion with a friend that I'm over here trying to push through, trying to make the podcast happen, trying to get into a healthy kick, being in nature and eating properly, and then this stuff happens. I literally had to be like, this is a scary situation. This is a traumatic situation. It's to the point that, like, especially in those first days, I was like constantly watching myself, right? I would watch out to see if he got out of jail, right? Or even beforehand, that weekend, when I would take out the dogs, go out, turn my body so that it wouldn't face his, you know what I mean? Like, I was being so cautious to not be seen, to not be like caught on his camera, because I don't know why he was recording me. It's a scary situation. It's a situation that's still ongoing. What's going to end up happening, we're going to jump ahead to the 2 weeks or a couple weeks later where Diana and I have to go in to see if our order of protection gets extended. I'm actually going to have Diana come on the episode so that she can also speak kind of on her behalf of what happened with them, and just to get like an extended view, and also tell you what happened at the courthouse that day on the 7th of July. The thing is, it's like we had to be there to request this extension, but also he had to be there to say something. This is where I'm going to end this episode. As always, I just wanted to say thank you to anyone who tunes in to listen. I would appreciate it if you could leave a review, and would be grateful if you could let me know what information resonated with you. Please follow and share on social media. The pages are at Se Vuelve Podcast, or my personals at Se Vuelve Monica. Once again, thank you so much for listening. Nos vemos pronto. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.